So, welcome to the Adventures in Learning podcast. I am your host, Dr. Diane, and today we are going to have so much fun. We have the March Sisters from Riversid Center for the Performing Arts, amazing, gorgeous production of Little Women here with us today. And we're going to be talking about that production, but we're also going to be doing a book talk and having a book conversation, book club, because they were the very first people to receive advanced reader copies of Little Monsters. And it's going to be fun to compare back and forth between their characters and the March Monsters. And also they got an advanced copy of Beth Is Dead. So we'll be talking about that one as well. Wonder, curiosity, connection. Where will your adventures take you? I'm Dr. Diane, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Adventures in Learning. So welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, thanks for having us. So excited.
We're so happy to be here.
So I think what I'm going to do so everybody gets a sense of who's in the room right now is we'll go from oldest to youngest March sister and have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, what role you're playing, and how you got to become an actor. What brought you to where you are?
Okay, no stress. I am Sarah Mae Anderson. I am playing Meg, the oldest, Margaret March. And I got into acting mainly because my family's just full of artists. My mom is an amazing painter and visual artist. And my dad plays the guitar. My oldest brother plays piano. My other brother plays guitar. So I was sort of just kind of entrenched in it from the start. And I got into dance and I got into sports. And then eventually I had to make a choice. And I went where the challenges were. I went where I felt like my heart was. And that's definitely in the performing arts for sure. And I went to JMU for musical theater. And then I ended up here in Fredericksburg and I live here now. And I perform at Riverside all the time. It's the best.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashlee Berry. I play Jo March. And where did I even start this? So I started acting, I think, when I was 6 years old. I am the middle child of my family. And so I think when my parents saw that I had lots of energy, they said, theater, let's try that. And I truly haven't stopped ever since. I went to school for theater as well, TCU, in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. And then I moved to New York in 2019, and I've been there ever since. So that's where I live now. I live in good old Queens. I love it. I love New York. I love being a New York actress. And thankfully, Riverside keeps having me back. This is my 5th production with them, which is wild. So happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Ella Schnorr. I am Dr. Diane's Adventures in Learning daughter.
Plot twist.
Plot twist. I play Beth March. And I started performing. I got into it because my sister was in a production of Annie when I was little. And I would go around the house singing Hard Knock Life. And the theater bug just kind of bit me after that. And I loved it ever since. I went to school also for musical theater, Long Island University, and then moved to New York about 2 years ago. So I'm there in Manhattan now, and it's great.
Yay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madison Cox, and I'm playing Amy March.
And I am the youngest of my brother and I. So there's only one other sibling. However, I really feel like I resonate with Amy a lot at times. What really got me into theater? I know that my best friend had me watch the movie version of Phantom of the Opera with her when I was 6. And that was my movie that I would watch. You know, I'm telling you, when I was 6. Yeah, genuinely. And we would rewatch it every day after school. And I was first off in love with Gerard Butler as a 6-year-old.
Natural.
Well, as one would.
Nice.
And then I was like, I want to be Christine. I need to be her. And then my mom was like, well, you should maybe just try theater. And so I started doing classes. And I think my first show was Charlotte's Web.
I was the bat. It was a really fun experience. And then
That was history from there.
So you all are playing the iconic March Sisters, and there can't be anybody listening to this who doesn't know the basic story of Little Women. I'm assuming that all of my listeners know Louisa May Alcott's classic, but if you don't, I'm going to give you homework assignment. Go read the book. Read the original book, and then go see the show at Riverside because it's really worth seeing. But the question is, how are you all alike and different from the character you portray? And what was it like to create sort of an iconic person? Because everybody comes into this show with preconceived notions of who Jo March is, who Amy is, who Beth and Meg are.
Well, that's such a great question. I remember reading Little Women very young, and I remember instantly connecting with Jo. I was like, that's my girl. And it's been honestly so awesome and incredible to play this character. I feel like it's healing my inner child a little bit. And I'll get too emotional about it. But yeah, I just feel like I've kind of been on the same trajectory as Jo, especially with my artistry as an actor, where growing up I was very passionate, very feisty, like no filter, says whatever I want. And I'm sure my siblings feel the same way. Jo, just like, it's been so cool to play to play multiple years of her life in this musical and kind of mellow out and go through the many trials and tribulations that life throws at her, and how she leans on her family and her support system, her found family, her blood related family, and through that finds her voice in her writing. And it's been so cool to look back on my experiences growing up. They're very, very similar. And I always say that like roles come to you at very specific and poignant parts of your life. And I truly feel that way about Jo. So I feel like we're very similar. I think I might have a more of a filter now. I don't think I'm as like quick to anger as Jo. But we are very similar.
I would say, oh my gosh, that was such a good answer. Meg and I have our differences. I am the Amy of my own family in real life. I am the youngest of 4, but they're all boys, so it's a little bit of a different dynamic, but not really. Honestly, I'm the loudest, the craziest of all of us, but what about Meg resonates with me is that she is into the drama. She's very caring. She wears her heart on her sleeve, which I can relate to. And she takes a lot of responsibility onto herself that isn't really her responsibility. She thinks of these girls like hers, and that is very protective. I'm a Scorpio, so I can relate. But even as the youngest, I would say my brothers would think my brothers would say I'm a little on the bossy side. And also just like, I like to control what I can control. And I think Meg is the same way. She's also the actor of the family, more so in the book than in the musical, but and also in real life, the woman who Meg is based off of in Louisa May Alcott's life was also quite the actor herself. And so obviously definitely a lot I can pull from in my own life. But where we differ is that, I've never felt that responsibility of being the oldest sibling, which I know oldest siblings in my life who feel that and sort of feel kind of removed from the sisterhood a little bit, only because they feel that like I have to be a mom when mom's not there. And Carson, our director, did such a great job of kind of pulling that out of us at the beginning of the process, talking about what our similarities are and what our differences are and who we are like to each other, which was super helpful and is still helpful. I think about it all the time while we're performing, while we're in the dressing room. I'm like, yeah, really gets it. But no, I feel like in more ways we're similar than we are different. But definitely romantic. I can relate to that. But yeah, she's such a caring girl, which is something I really feel. And I love these girls
Aw. You all are the sweetest.
forever if I could, but they'll leave me, I'm sure.
No, never.
No, it's like you leave Meg, whatever.
I am the youngest of two. I have an older sister. I feel like in our relationship, I can very much be an Amy.
You
I
say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, everyone's
I'm not. I'm just
no,
saying,
it's
like,
great.
like that's where it differs. We're like in my personal sister relationship, I think I can have a Beth side of me sometimes with her, but I think a lot of the time we're both very opinionated people and like both being right. And so we can sometimes, I think I sometimes have an Amy personality when I'm with my sister, but she's my sister and I love her. So I feel like that's always how it is with sisters. You love each other, you fight with each other. And that's how I feel like that's how I differ in my relationship with my sister. But I feel like personally, I do try always to see like the best in the people that are around me. And I always try to see the good in situations. And even if I'm like frustrated with the situation that's going on, I'm like, but maybe this is happening with that person. And maybe that's why they're acting this way. Or maybe that's why I'm frustrated with them because there is something going on with them as well. And so I feel like that's a similarity I have with Beth is that I try and always have that faith in people and seeing the good in people. And with my family too, I feel like I'm always trying to just like
Be the peacemaker.
that's literally what I was just saying. Be the peacemaker, make the peace
So
with the
sad.
family. And I don't know. I don't like when arguments happen. I don't like when fights happen. So I always try and keep the peace and make things right. And I feel like that's a big thing. One thing that I hope I will never have to. I hope that I have a nice long life ahead of me.
We hope so too. Let's not be Beth. Spoiler alert for anybody who doesn't know it, Beth dies.
Beth is
Beth
dead.
is dead. Okay. So I feel like Amy is extremely misunderstood. And at the record straight for everyone that looked at me being like, I feel like I'm kind of an Amy. But yeah. And I think I talked to Kirsten, our director, about it. The first rehearsal, I was like, I'm so fearful of coming across as like a villain because I know that Amy's not. And that's what a lot of discourse about the book is. You see like someone's either on Joe or Amy's side. There's a few in between, but it's typically one or the other. And I think two things can be true at the same time. And also, she's super young and she is just incredibly outspoken. She's very similar to Joe. And that is why they're so combative because she wants to take up as much space as Joe takes up. And, you know, when there's 4 girls, there's only so much space you can take up at one time. And so that's why it's like really important to have like, you know, Beth keeping the peace and then Meg is there. But
Meg is there.
It's true, I am.
she is. And she is in all her glory. I'm just totally
Well, you know, it's funny. Louisa May Alcott actually wrote later, like in a letter to kids who were writing about the sisters, that Amy had grown better over the years, that when she wrote it at the time, she was writing about her sister May based on a perception at a certain point in their life, but they became the best of friends later. And when May died in Europe after giving birth to a baby, she gave Louisa her kid to raise. So I think there was repair in that relationship.
There was.
I also like truly do think that Amy is not a villain.
No.
Like
No.
young and she wants to have she just wants to take up the space that her other sisters have.
Right.
She's just young. I don't think she's a villain.
And it's just, I think, hard too with the stage adaptation. You only get so much. And especially in the beginning, a lot of the conflict, quote unquote, was like Amy burning Joe's story, which, you have to come into it finding like I'm super upset. And this in this moment feels like the right thing to do. But there is a lot of remorse. And she does feel super bad about it. And she understands her actions. But again, she's also very young. So it's like, it's hard and everyone can be upset and in their own space. But I really love Amy. And I think that she's a bubbly girl. And I find a lot of myself in her. And honestly, like most of her lines, I feel like I would say in that exact moment. So it just feels like I'm not really pulling from anything because I'm like, I would say this right now.
I love that. Now, you guys referenced working with Carson, the director, to find your characters. Tell us a little bit about the bond of sisterhood, because clearly you have it.
Well, okay, fine. I'll go. I think, a lot of it a lot of it came into the rehearsal room before we even began.
Yeah.
A lot of us, we almost had all met through
Or
knew of each other. We've all worked here before. Ashlee and I have done quite a few shows together. Ella and I we did Sound of Music together. And Madison was here in the summer doing Next to Normal. And so I met her then. And you were in
I moved to the house, so
and
that's how
they were living together and became besties. Ashlee and I already besties. And then we just sort of all got in the same room and we were like, sister. But I think also we all I can't speak for all of us, but I definitely respect the way we all work and the way we all are as people. And I'm just glad it's this group because it's so great.
And I feel like on stage, there's so many moments of joy. And there's this picture that they took during one of our dress rehearsals, I believe. And it's when we're all huddled together and we go forever. And there's joy in that picture and joy on stage that you can't act. I mean, you can act it, but like it's just so raw and real with us that it's not a moment that I feel like can be replicated in any way because it just feels so true because I feel like we really all do love each other so much.
Absolutely.
Well, and having been in the audience a few times, I can say for sure that joy definitely comes off, to the audience. And certainly if you follow the social media and people's responses to this show, there's something magical about it. Like I haven't seen people respond to a show in the way that I'm seeing them respond to this particular show. And it seems to be just the right mix of actors and musicians at the right time. And maybe it's the show that we need as a country right now, too. The idea that we are better together.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to move into our book club section.
Hi, friends. This is Patrick Ahern, CEO and producing artistic director for the Riverside Center for the Performing Arts. On stage, March 18th, Riverside presents Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, the musical. Little Women follows the lives of the four March sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, as Jo details their experiences growing up in the 1860s America. Filled with laughter and tears, love and loss, Little Women will lift your spirits. Voted Best Theater by Broadway World, USA Today, and Fredericksburg.com, Riverside brings Broadway's best right to your backyard. Purchase tickets at riversidedt.com or call 540-370-4300. Riverside Center for the Performing Arts is a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
So welcome back, and I am so excited to be able to talk about the books with you. I thought we would start by unpacking Little Monsters, since that you were the very first ones to get this book. Simon & Schuster was so excited to have you all take a look at it when I pitched to them that I knew 4 beautiful young women who were going to be playing the March Sisters. And they were like, yes, that sounds amazing. So for those who don't know, in Little Monsters, each of the March girls is hiding a secret. They've been living in foster care, and they're in Concord, Massachusetts, which is the home of Louisa May Alcott, and each one of them is hiding her own monstrous ability from the rest of the people in town. And so it's designed for middle grade, like 6th, 7th, 8th graders. What was your take on it?
Oh my gosh. Well, I will go because
It's about you.
Yes.
It's about you. Meg is centered. It's no longer, it's here's Meg. It's here's Meg.
Yes. And what a pleasant surprise.
But she's not just there.
I thought it was such an interesting take on their relationship as sisters. They are relatively very young in this adaptation, which I thought really brought like a new energy to them. I believe Meg is only 13. And so it just kind of, it adds to the relatability, but also just like the fun and the coming of age in a different way. You know, Meg meets John Brooke and all of those feelings are happening. And I think that's a really like exciting part of the book. I told the actor who plays John Brooke in the show, I told him he would love the book because
Make sure you share it with him.
yeah, he'd love it. But I really enjoyed it. I think like a lot of different messages come through about being different and loving each other, and also just kind of seeing past what's on the outside or what's potentially face value. I think that is just like a really wonderful message that anyone should hear at any time. I love to read young adult novels because I think that they really touch on some really amazing thoughts that I need in my adult life, even though I'm not young anymore.
I think they're written for all of us. I'm still reading them, and I'm older than you ladies.
But I love the monsters that is like each monster that is assigned to each sister. For me, I've started reading that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Uh-huh. And so I loved that. And then another little tidbit that I also thought was really interesting was the whole theme around like their finances, which I thought was interesting, kind of taken from the book in the sense of the March family used to be pretty wealthy and now they're not. And that was such an anxiety of Meg's.
Yeah.
And that's what I really admired about Little Monsters was there were so many big ideas that were broken down and made more available for younger audiences.
Yeah, totally.
Because I do think Little Women, although I think anyone can read that book, it is kind of complex for
Yes.
I think it's a great introduction into like the characters and who they are, and then when they feel like they're ready to read Little Women, they at least already know the relative concept of who these people are. And that's what I really enjoyed is that they had all of those characters from the book incorporated into it in some type of way, whether they were like a monster or just someone that came in for a few minutes. Like I really enjoyed how every single character you got introduced to, and they all like intertwined with each other, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And I think like adding the element of them being foster in the foster care system was so interesting, especially because, I mean, in the book and in the original story, we have Marmee and we also have Hannah and we also have our father. And so kind of taking those elements out, Marmee is still a character. She becomes our foster mom, but it's relatively new. And so that, like, I think puts Meg in a pressure cooker. And so it's interesting to kind of see that interpretation and hear kind of how the girls would have adapted to that. It takes their characters and enriches that part of their sisterhood and their protection of each other. And they're like, no, I've got it this time. Like, don't feel like you have to do it. I'll do it. And that is a lot of Meg's story is that Marmee leaves for a portion of the book for a portion of the musical, and Meg is sort of put in charge of the girls. And so it's definitely something that I was like really loving because it was fun to read as like a person in the show and seeing like, oh yeah, this is what Meg would do if we were.
Exactly. If you were a monster and you were in these situations. And it feels to me like it even leaves the door open so that there might be a monster book about Joe and one about Beth and one about Amy as well. So, spoiler alert, Beth didn't die in that book.
Even better.
Beth survived.
So that brings us then to one that puts Beth's death front and center. Beth is dead. A little triggering in the title alone, based on just and it's bright pink and it's a murder mystery now.
I love the cover.
I know,
so
it's so
cool.
good. So I think we need a little context to how cool this is. Ella and I almost every show we like to listen to a murder podcast. So I just think that adds another really beautiful
Yeah.
Now getting to read it in this kind of style.
It was really interesting.
It's very good. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one. And I loved that you got to get the perspectives from multiple characters, but also get the perspectives from then and now. So you're slowly piecing together information. So you're not getting information ahead of it. You're piecing it together as the sisters are, as like you're piecing everything together at the same time as every character is. And I thought that was so cool because you're bouncing off of each character because every character does something wrong at one point where you're like, oh, maybe they were the one that killed Beth.
Yeah.
And then
you're like,
and each one has a reason
to be guilty.
A reason.
Yeah, everyone's hiding something. There's like in every chapter you're finding out something new, which you're like, wait, what? And then you're trying.
And then your mind is spinning.
But then it's going from then and now, and you're like, wait, but I want to know what you just found out then. And it's funny because like reading it as a person who's playing one of these characters, I was like, no, it couldn't fit. It would never. Like
I was getting upset because I was like, why would my sisters kill me?
Well, I was wondering that actually as I was reading it, as you all are so protective of your characters, and some of these characters do things that, at least at first glance, feel very outside of what we think about when we think Little Women. But if you set it in a modern context, it kind of made some sense. Where were those moments for you without spoilers?
How do we say without spoilers is hard.
Well, we won't reveal who Beth's killer is. How about that?
Of course. Right.
There we go.
I think just the general context of like what teenagers are like now and what teenagers were like then. Obviously, tons of similarities as we can see in the book and as we are realizing as we play these sisters. But I think just like you're like, wait, they went to a party and like that's what happened at the party.
Yeah.
But then, we sort of think about our own teenage years. And we're like, okay, I guess that was happening. And us being out late at night and having certain relationships that feel more adult than I thought they would.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, no, actually, that adds up. The math is mathing.
I love that. So we've talked about two very modern books, and there are so many variations that people come out with. Like they're still doing versions of Little Women 150 years later. What has made this story so timeless that people keep wanting to pick it up and do something new with it?
I think it's the bond that obviously the sisters share that can go from generation to generation. And I think because each person is so uniquely different, I think that's what makes it so cool to keep making these like new renditions of it. And like, we're going to want to read it because it's a beloved story. Yeah. So like, I'm going to want to pick up Beth Is Dead because also that title is crazy.
Yeah.
And I want to read it, but also I'm like, wait, I know what this is about.
And I feel like that's what's really cool about it is if you read the book, I feel like you always gravitate towards one of the sisters. You're like, oh, I see myself in that sister. I see myself in that. So I feel like that's what's exciting about these books and any other book that comes out is like, if you gravitate towards Meg, this is so cool. You get to have this whole perspective around this character that you love. And like with Beth Is Dead, like I've always loved Beth and I've gravitated towards Beth, and getting to read a book that has such cool like intel.
Yeah.
I love it. So I feel like there's so much familiarity with all of these characters that you can create all of these different stories and people are going to love them because you have such a love for those people that you get to have a different perspective on who they all are.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about Beth Is Dead, one of the themes that I really clung to was the fact that they really explored when the sisters finally read Little Women. Obviously, they knew what it was about, but the kind of exploration of the stereotypes that were kind of thrust upon them. But when the sisters read Little Women, they kind of saw, yes, the stereotypes, but that they were so much more than that. And I feel like Little Women is like the stereotype kind of blueprint, which allows other artists and writers to expand upon the characters that they love in more of like a in-depth way, I guess.
Yeah, right. Which is sort of why we're becoming protective of our
characters.
Why we're like, no, Amy's not a villain. Because it everybody has their own perspective coming through their life and the siblings in their life and the family that they have. And so then you just sort of form this own complex sister that exists only for you.
Right.
And then everyone is creating that for themselves. And then when books like this come out, you're like, oh, someone saw that too. Or experienced that too.
Right.
And that's really cool.
And I think, like, honestly, to tie it in with acting, I think, like, that's the cool thing about tackling a character. Like, my Jo would be very different than, like, your Jo.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's the cool thing about acting is that you bring your own experiences to it. And I feel the same way about, like, authors tackling these characters as well.
And me and Madison were talking about this in the car on the way here. When we were reading these books, all I could imagine while reading these books was the four of us as the characters. So when I was like reading Meg, I was like picturing you, and thinking about Jo, I was picturing you.
Yeah.
And so I was putting my own personal perspective on Beth, because in what we've talked about in rehearsals is that Beth has like the quiet strength of the family. She's the glue of the family, and you can see how she's that in Beth Is Dead as well. And so I'm putting my personal perspectives into what I'm reading as well. So I'm kind of elaborating in my mind too about what these characters are feeling and thinking, because we have such a tie with them. But all I could imagine while I was reading them was the four of us as these characters.
I love that. And, I was thinking about when Louisa May Alcott wrote this book, she had been doing the Jo books. She had been writing the blood and the gore and, making a tidy sum to support her family doing that. But this really was that Valentine to Beth in particular, and that long ago dead sister, but also to Meg and Amy who were still alive, to her mother and her mother's strength. Bronson got his mention later. Their relationship was much more complex, and we could spend lots of time talking about the disappearing father.
Right.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think that makes this work is, she kind of wrote it as they said, write a book for girls. And she wasn't really a traditional girl in any stretch of the imagination. So her take on writing a book for girls was pretty radical. And maybe that's what girls were looking for. And not just girls, but I think boys too, because certainly it's not just girls in the cast. There are boys as well. And I apologize for not inviting them on, but
that's okay.
It's fine.
But I do think the story can resonate for them as well. It's that timeless thing about family and friendship and possibility.
Yeah.
Imagine a space where curiosity drives innovation, where empathy fuels collaboration, and where learning feels less like a task and more like an adventure. My message isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about changing how you see the plate entirely. I'm Dr. Diane Jackson Schnorr, and through the power of purposeful play, I equip leaders, educators, and organizations with the tools you need to unlock creative problem solving, deepen human connection, and build resistant ecosystems of empathy and innovation. Attendees will walk away not just inspired, but empowered, with immediately usable strategies to spark curiosity in teams, to lead with empathy, and to infuse learning into their everyday cultures. You'll learn how play isn't child's work. It's the secret weapon of the world's most effective leaders and change makers. This is not a feel-good talk that fades by Monday morning. It's a movement, a shift in how we engage people, solve problems, and lead meaningful change. My talks and workshops are shaped by decades of experience in education and a transformative message that connects across sectors. Whether your audience is corporate, educational, or nonprofit, they'll leave ready to rethink what's possible, both personally and professionally. Because when we learn and lead through play, we don't just change organizations, we change the world. Check it out at drdianeadventures.com. Why should people come and see the show? You guys are running till the end of April. Why should people make a trip to Fredericksburg?
Well, number one, you have us. Number two, the show, like you were just kind of chatting about, is not just for women. Truly, I think that anyone could relate to any of the various characters. I mean, you've got Lori, you've got John Brooke, you've got Marmee, and all of the gang, for sure. Sauce, I don't know if you guys want to take it away after that.
I don't know. I think something special, obviously it's for everyone, but I think something special that we've been kind of seeing is that it's a multi-generational experience. So we've seen grandparents and parents and grandchildren all there at the same table seeing the show and all getting to experience it in a different way because of the different life experiences everyone's had. So I truly think it's for everyone because you can relate to it depending on the different life experiences you've had. You can get a different experience out of it. And I love that it's been a multi-generational experience for so many families.
And I think the addition of it being a musical does highlight some of the really beautiful parts of the story. And it's right in front of you. You're not, I mean, I love the Little Women movies, so not knocking them by any means. For any of the books, they all have their own stylistic benefits to someone's artistic life. But I do think that when you've got the people in front of you telling the story, singing about how they're feeling and their relationships with one another, it really changes it. And it really affects you in a new way.
We've got an incredible orchestra.
Yes, you do.
Yes, we do.
And the songs are bops.
And they are.
And we would just love to have you here. So definitely.
Yeah, true.
And I'm sure they'll provide tissues at every table, right?
Oh,
They must.
if you'll sponsor them. No.
You heard it there. Reach out to Sarah if you want to sponsor the tissues.
Kleenex.
I'm your girl.
So I'll drop the information about how to get your tickets. So last question, and it's a question that I always end the podcast with because I think it's an important one. It's what's currently bringing you hope? We're living in times that are kind of challenging and tough, and I find that that's just a really good question to end each podcast on, to remind ourselves that there are good things still.
I think a big thing for me right now, and like this is going to sound so cheesy, but is like these girls. I feel like each one of them are so resilient and so full of hope and joy that it gives me hope that there's like a brighter future ahead. So that sounds really cheesy, but I really do think like these girls are a big reason for hope right now.
And I think something so beautiful is like no matter what we're going through, like every day we all show up here and for each other. I mean, there'll be days when like one of us might not be in a good headspace, but we carry that person, you know what I mean? And we all have a wonderful time on stage regardless. And it's just, I think it's so beautiful when you have that connection with people, which I feel like we have. So
to touch on what you said, I think our relationship brings me a lot of hope. So.
No, I think to totally piggyback, I think as an actor, sometimes you're always continuously auditioning for the next thing, which is hard. And I think it's been really important for me this show personally to just like focus on being present and being here, especially because I think Jo March is the hardest role I've ever played in my entire life. So I think that's
She's so good at it.
She really is.
But I think just being able to stay present and be with all of you on stage and just being silly on stage. And plus I got to shout him out. My husband and I are performing together too. He plays Lori. It has been really, really, really special. And yeah, I've just recently had a couple of friends see the past 2 shows and they just went on and on about it and how important. I truly think this story brings me hope because it still is so prevalent today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, okay. I think, obviously, yes to everything. And then also, I think like seeing people's reaction to this show has brought me a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've had like a lot of young people see it, which kind of ties into our little book club here. I really love that this story has been inspiring and will continue to inspire young minds and people who don't know who they want to be yet. And that brings me hope.
Yes.
I love that. Well, you all bring me hope, and I am so excited to get to come see the show one more time before it closes.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Adventures in Learning podcast with your host, Dr. Diane. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, download, and let us know what you think, and please tell a friend. If you want the full show notes and the pictures, please go to drdianeadventures.com. We look forward to you joining us on our next adventure.